All right, this is Math 209, Week 1, Section 5.3, multiplying. So what does that mean? Well, multiplying, when you have a number in front of a quantity, that means you have the distributive property. So we're going to multiply everything inside the parentheses by 13. So 13 times 1, because there's a 1 right there. When you don't see a number, it's a 1. So 13 times 1 is 13. So that's going to be 13x. And then this is going to be 13 times positive 1, which is positive 13. And there you go. I'm going to focus on this in later problems. So if you don't quite understand that yet, don't worry, you will. So here we've got a negative 4 being multiplied by the quantity 7y plus 8. So here is our distributive property. And so what we've got is a negative 7 being multiplied by positive 7. So that's negative 28y. Now here, the negative 4 is being multiplied by a positive 8. So that gives us negative 32. And that is our answer. Again, this is the tricky part right here, and I'm just going to keep focusing on that. So as you're marching through these problems, you're going to gradually understand this a little bit better. So here, all they've done is reversed the problem. They've just they've taken the thing and written it backwards, so to speak. So if you wanted to, you really could switch it to make it z times 10 minus z. So you can just kind of swap these and make it like this. So you basically treat this and this as two building blocks, and you just reverse the building blocks, okay? And now we've got our distributive property. So what does that mean? Well, z times 10 gives you 10z. And then here you've got a positive z being multiplied by a negative z. So you can think of this right here as a 1, right? And you can think of this as what's going to be a negative 1. So what is 1 times negative 1? Well, that's negative 1. So we know the answer is going to be negative 1, and z, oopsies, and z times z is z squared. So that's the answer. Although if you wanted to, you could drop that 1, and it could be 10z minus z squared. Your choice. Either one of these would work. All right, so we're just going to keep getting a little bit more sophisticated. So we have negative y multiplied by the quantity 5 plus 6y. And so here is our distributive property, remembering that this is a negative 1. So what do we have here? Well, we have negative 1 times 5, so that's negative 5y. And then we have negative 1 being multiplied by positive 6y. So let's focus on the numbers first. Negative 1 times positive 6. Well, that gives you negative 6. Now let's focus on the y's. Y times y is y squared, and there is your answer. All right, so again, they're just more of the same, only they're getting a little bit more complicated each time, and it looks complicated, but it's really more of the same, really. So this is not a time sign, that's an x. So this is a number right here, 7x. Is being distributed amongst each of the terms inside the parentheses. So let's think of this, fortunately everything's positive, so we don't have to worry too much about signs. So this is positive 7 times positive 7, so that gives you 49, and then this is x times x squared, so that's x cubed. And then you have positive 7 times positive 2, so that's positive 14. So it's positive 14, but here's an x, and there's nothing being multiplied over here, so you just put the x, and there is your answer. So again, I am going to immediately switch, because I like the number being distributed to be in the front. I'm just more comfortable that way. So I just, like building blocks, I swapped the blocks, and now I can look at my distributive property here. And so this becomes 8x cubed plus 5x squared. And if you're not sure about that, pause, look at the video, and kind of think about how did I get that. And the big hint is there's a 1 right there. And then here, it's just a big problem, but this is probably one of the easiest of them all so far. So 3 times the quantity, 8x squared minus 5x plus 6. So we've got this 3 being multiplied by everything inside the quantity. So think about this as a positive 3. So 3 times 8 is 24. So it's 24x squared. And then think of this as 3 times negative 5, so that becomes negative 15x. And think of this as 3 times positive 6, which is positive 18, and there is your answer. So we have n squared being multiplied by negative 3n squared plus 9n minus 5. It's alphabet soup here. So we're distributing that n squared. We're distributing the n squared. And so think of that n squared as it being a 1n squared. So 1 times negative 3 is negative 3. N squared times n squared, so that's n to the 4th power. If you're not sure about that, over here, n squared times n squared. Well, n squared means n times n squared means n times n, and if we're multiplying it, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's n being raised to the 4th power. So that's what's going on right there, and that's how we come to that conclusion, right? So n squared times n squared is n to the 4th power. All right, so now we have 1 times positive 9, so that's positive 9, but we have n squared times n, so that's n to the 3rd power. And then we have 1 times negative 5, so that's negative 5. And then n squared times, well, there's nothing over there, so we just bring over the n squared, and there is our answer. And the last one, multiplied. So you've got 14xy times the quantity x plus y. So each of the terms inside the parentheses is being multiplied by 14xy. And it might help you to think of this as a 1 and this as a 1. So 14 times 1 is 14. Now you've got x times x, so that's x squared, and then the y is being multiplied by nothing right here. We're just taking care of this term first, so it just brings it over. Now you have 14 times positive 1, so that's positive 14. The x doesn't have anything to be multiplied by, but the y does. Y times y is y squared, and there is your answer.